My name is Chacon. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I'm part of Kronos' 50 for the Future project. I grew up in Chinle, Arizona, on the Navajo reservation. And Chinle is a town that's at the mouth of Canyon de Chelly. Any music that was on the radio, and also my grandfather, he is a singer of traditional Navajo music, so that was always present. And just anything else that I could take in, anything from heavy metal to country music. A lot of that was prevalent on the reservation. Probably started writing music when I was about 12 years old, 12 or 13. I took piano lessons and taught myself to play the guitar, and you start experimenting and making your own little compositions, and I just continued since then. I think probably sometime going into deciding to study in the university. I didn't know if I wanted to become an artist or continue with making music, and I chose music. So probably when I decided to enroll in the music program at the University of New Mexico. Eventually all of the sound work I was doing and composing overlapped with making artworks, more visual artworks or working with video or film or installation. So all of it converged, and so that was probably an interest the whole time. I just didn't have the right collaborators to do it with. I think when you're a young person and you make music, you just try to play with as many people as you can, and some of those people might be much better than you at playing music, and others maybe aren't as serious, but you find yourself playing with all these different people and learning from each of them. And sometimes you don't have the best equipment, and you learn how to make sound with that inadequate equipment as well. So I think there's always a learning opportunity, and all of that is going to inform the kind of music you end up making and the music you want to hear. Yeah, it was an amazing concert. I don't know if I had expectations, but you have assumptions when you hear the word string quartet that you might be hearing some very old music. And so I was still open-minded. I just wanted to hear live music because that's not something that's always accessible. So I went to see them, and I was blown away. There's a few different parts of my work that maybe they were interested in. One of those might be the kinds of sounds I'm working with, which sometimes can be a more kind of grating or distorted sounds, even for acoustic instruments. And in my experience, there's not a lot of repertoire available that has those kinds of sounds in them. Another part of my work has been dealing with time and the structures of time, and how a group of 4 people might have a shared experience in working out that duration that they're given. And so that's something that ended up in the piece that I wrote for Kronos. Also, I think there's probably some other kinds of conceptual ideas in the piece that I wanted to include in this, especially dealing with Navajo worldview and the roles of individual musicians in the quartet. And so all of that comes out in the piece. In the quartet that I wrote for Kronos, there's an instruction that a woman should be in the quartet, and the piece is designed so that the quartet, as they move through measures, will get lost. It's designed that the quartet will lose their place, and there's instructions at certain points for the woman in the group to realign the quartet back into time so that they can continue on this journey that they're doing. So that stems from a creation story, a Navajo creation story, speaking about how the clans a long time ago came from different places around the Southwest to converge in the homelands they have today. And a lot of times in those stories, there was a woman who was a guide who steered the clan into where they were going. And Kronos came back and said, "What if there's not a woman in the quartet?" And I said, "Well, it is the 21st century, but of course there might not be someone for that role." So we worked it out, that what is the worldview that might still allow for this situation. And there's two solutions to that. One is to be that either the eldest member of the quartet would take on that role of being the guide, or the member who most identifies as a woman would take that on. I love writing for string quartet because of the tonality of the instruments, the ability of the instruments to hold extremely long tones and to let those tones turn into oscillations and there's a kind of vibrato, all the spectrum of vibrato that's possible, and having all the different kinds of tonal qualities that can shift very gradually as they're playing. And I'm always surprised every time I work on a piece for violin or cello or viola that all the possibilities that I think have been exhausted, and I always find something new. When writing this piece, I had considerations towards the difficulty of it. I surely wanted to put down on paper the things that I wanted Kronos to be able to perform, but I had some considerations that other emerging quartets would be playing this as well. So I had thought about that while I was writing it, and so what I think a young quartet can get out of this, or young musicians, would be the experimentations in dealing with time, in working out these sections where they get lost and where they end up on their own tempo and their own kind of temporal path, and then having that experience of having one of the members conduct them back into the timeline. Other than composing for chamber musicians, a lot of work that I'm doing right now is making sound installations and other artworks and other mediums, especially with my collective Post-Commodity. And a lot of my work, it all overlaps. So even in some Post-Commodity works, we work with chamber musicians, or we work with video, but at the same time still compose music for all of that work. Another large part of my work is in educating youth on the Navajo and Hopi and Salt River Pima reservations and Indian communities, and having these young people write string quartets. So I go out to these high schools for 1 week and give 30 of these students the task of writing a 5-minute string quartet, which then they complete in the span of 1 week, and then we put on a concert at the Grand Canyon. I think the identity of the string quartet, or of chamber musicians as a whole, is changing in the 21st century. So I would hope that young people have the courage to be involved in these kinds of art forms. That classical music isn't necessarily an intimidating world to be in, and that anybody really can learn these tools, these instruments, and form a group and perform this kind of music. I just want to say ahehet to Kronos, which means thank you in Navajo, and for giving me the opportunity to write for them. And it's been a highlight of my career so far, for sure.